The power of finding and using your authentic voice. And this is going to take us to exercise 25, unleash your authentic voice, a treasure hunt. When I talk about your authentic voice, I think it's important first to look at the ways in which your voice has been stolen. And one of the biggest ways that I see pretty consistently is with people who have been conditioned to believe that they should suppress their inner voice in an effort to keep the peace. This the first time I heard it after I started doing this healing work, because obviously I saw things from a very different perspective then. It was really jarring to me. I had someone who was coming out, as being more spiritual, and they were trying to understand their gifts and their internal power more. And they did not want to talk to their grandparents who they lived with about this because they wanted to keep the peace. But it was causing her so much distress to not share this very beautiful, intimate part of her, this exploration that she was in. It was really causing her distress to having to suppress and to mask this part of who she was. But she had been so conditioned to believing that it was better to keep the peace than to speak your truth in each moment. And I'm not one of those people who believe that you always need to be saying what's on your mind. Mm-mm. I think that's different than using your authentic voice, right? When it's for advocating for yourself, when it's speaking up, when it's just telling your truth, right? As opposed to everything that's on my mind, I'm going to spit it out because I need to use my authentic voice. It's a little bit different, right? It's a lot different energetically. But I think it's important to keep in mind, if you were brought up in this dynamic, that if I'm keeping the peace, I'm also keeping my peace. I'm first and foremost keeping my peace because I have, first and foremost, a responsibility to myself. Before I have a responsibility to do anything for anyone else, I have a responsibility to really love myself well, to advocate for myself, and to always speak my truth and be in alignment with myself, right? So, keeping the peace is fine. But if keeping the peace requires that you constantly have to deny how you're feeling, you constantly have to suppress the expression of your needs, your wants, your feelings, then it's not about keeping the peace. It's about suppressing you and manipulating you. Right. Now, what I have found in some people who their whole life they've been told, like, shush, you don't see the world like this. Be quiet. You're too loud. Be quiet. You're too sensitive. Don't speak your truth because no one cares. No one's listening, or it's the wrong truth. Those people, once they learn to start speaking their truth, oh, they want to tell everyone. They get very angry. They are going to be heard. They are going to be heard. I have been ignored for 30 years. I'm going to roar now. And so anger is normally a very quick emotion on the spiritual journey or the healing journey, whichever one, you see yourself on. And to me, they're the same damn thing, but I know a lot of you guys don't necessarily consider them the same. They want to make sure that they're heard. So they kind of have no filter, they have no regulation, they're just spitting it out everywhere. And I don't recommend that. Okay. You still need to have emotional regulation. And there's a reason why we talk about this after we talk about emotional regulation, right? There's a reason why we talk about this after we teach some concepts around emotional maturity, because you don't want to just set flame to all of your relationships. And because everything doesn't require the energy that we would be putting into everything if we always like, "Rawr, this is how I feel, this is how I feel." There's some things that just truly are not worth that energy. And the main thing that you guys need to keep in mind is the value of your energy and not wasting it in places that aren't going to help you grow as a person, that are not edifying for you, right? So I don't waste my truth in places where I know it's not going to be appreciated, or in places where it doesn't do anything beneficial to me, because that's a waste of my energy and I'm a good steward of that. So if I have a friend who I know they have made it clear to me that they lack the capacity to hold space for my authentic feelings, I'm probably not going to express them because there's no point, but I'm probably also going to change the parameters of that relationship. I'm going to have to address access to it. If I live in places that do not allow for my self advocacy and my very authentic voice, I'm probably going to reevaluate how often I want to be in those spaces, right? But I'm not going to sit and fight with those spaces, because that's a waste of my energy. You show me your capacity. I believe you. I respect it. Let me figure out somewhere else to be, somewhere else to go, right? But when I can use my authentic voice, I need to be using it. When I find that it's appropriate to speak my truth, I need to be speaking a very honest truth, right? And you're going to get that wrong at first. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. You're going to over explain at first because you're so used to over explaining. You're going to be seeking validation and speaking your truth because we're used to doing that. It's going to take a while for you to, number one, find your authentic voice, and number two, understand how best to use it. But I want to give you this word, and I want you to give yourself the space to really like figure out what that is. You know, when I first got my voice, or when I thought I got my voice, man, I was inappropriate. I was overly inappropriate, but that was a new way of masking. And I didn't realize that that was a new way of masking. I was overly like, I was boisterous. I had to make a spectacle of everything, but I had to speak on everything. I thought that was me finding my authentic voice. And it's okay. I made a fool of myself. It's okay. That was part of the journey of learning how to use my voice. Think about a toddler when they're first learning what language, what volume, when is it appropriate. It's the same thing. You're relearning because so much of that was taught to you, and it was taught to you in a way that didn't benefit you, that benefited the people around you. That now, in reframing yourself in how you use your voice, you are a toddler. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to have to learn when it's the appropriate thing, when you shouldn't say something, at what volume, what tone. You're going to have to relearn that. And so just giving yourself grace and forgiveness when you screw up is important, but always endeavoring when you speak to speak your truth, to not restrict your truth, and to prioritize somebody else in your truth telling. Well, it will hurt my feelings to keep quiet, but it might hurt their feelings. So if I speak up, so it's easier for me to hurt my own feelings. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Right? I think you always need to make yourself a priority and always be as kind as you can in your delivery, understanding that how your authentic voice is received is not as important as you speaking your authentic truth when it is appropriate and when it is safe to do so too, because it's not always safe. And that's a real issue that we need to consider. It's not always safe for you to speak your truth. And so you do what you need to do in those moments, and then you get away from that environment. If it's not safe for me to be there, if it's not safe for me to speak my truth, it's not safe for me to be in that environment. So I'm going to do what I need to do. All right. This is especially important when you're looking at like, I'm going to see my family and I don't like seeing them. How do I navigate this? I get this from a lot of clients. If it's not safe for you to speak your truth, then don't. If it's not safe, shield, clear, bind people, go into that situation, keeping your energy as protected as possible, and then get out of there as fast as you can. Because that's all that you can do. You know that it's not safe for you to speak your truth. So I'm not going to, but I'm also not going to subject myself to being around these people all the time because it's harmful to me. Right. And in love of myself, I'm not sitting here participating in things that harm me often. All of this is wonderful advice if you know your authentic voice. So that's the first thing. And that's the exercises that we're doing in this block, really just uncovering what our authentic voice even is. And again, as you find it, you are going to make mistakes and blunders, and you got to make it okay while you discover who you really are. Most of us make a mess. Once you discover who you are, that's where you'll find your authentic voice. And by then, you'll have a lot of good practice in using it in a really beautiful way. And you won't have to be afraid of what could go wrong in speaking your truth. But please remember, anytime peace is being kept, your peace must be included in that, right? Every time. Anyone who's asking you to silence yourself for their comfort and their benefit is abusing you on some level. And I know that sounds a little bit hyperbolic, but it's the truth. They're asking you to suffer for their comfort. Nobody who loves you is ever going to require that of you, nor you of anyone else.